and welcome back to the WARC Podcast. I'm Anne-Marie Kerwin, America's editor, and today we have a new episode of The Effective CMO, where we interview marketing leaders at some of the world's most interesting brands to learn more about their approach to effectiveness. And this time, we're asking guests to comment on some of the biggest trends impacting marketing for 2026 from the recent WARC report, The Marketer's Toolkit. The Marketer's Toolkit is based on data from more than 1,000 real-life marketers around the world, in-depth interviews with leading marketers, and analysis from WARC's own team of experts. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by a marketing leader from one of the world's largest portfolio of premium spirits, Matt Foley. He is here to discuss how his company, Pernod Ricard, is navigating economic headwinds, AI disruption, and shifting consumer passions.
If you're listening to this podcast, you'll know that WARC is the home of leading effectiveness thinking. And now, we're teaching you everything you need to know about the fundamentals of strategy. WARC Strategy Fundamentals is WARC's new digital course for junior or entry-level strategists. You'll learn from award-winning case studies and hear directly from top strategists and WARC's own experts, giving you the latest industry insights alongside proven, practical frameworks. Sharpen up your skills to excel in 2026 with WARC Strategy Fundamentals. Available now at warc.com/learning.
Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Great to meet you.
I'd like to start with a question we ask of your fellow CMOs who have joined us on this podcast. What is your philosophy on marketing effectiveness, and what does that phrase mean to you in the context of your brands?
For me, great marketing doesn't just make people feel something about your brand. It makes it easy for them to do something. And that's really how I think about marketing effectiveness overall. It's really about connecting that entire end-to-end consumer journey, from how people are thinking about your brand to how they can then ultimately go buy your brand. And that all starts with building mental availability, making sure consumers are instantly recognizing what makes your brand distinctive and special, what sets you apart. What role does your brand play in their life emotionally that is different from other choices they could make? But coming back to the marketing effectiveness side, the effectiveness is only going to happen when all of that work is paired with physical availability. And today that means a frictionless path to purchase. The right pack, the right channel, the right moment, the right price point. It's a lot to think about. And arguably, it's much harder today, right, for marketers. And there's more pressure on the marketing teams to think through that path to purchase because of how integrated it is through our media and through the digital touch points along the way. And the brands that are going to win and be the most effective are the ones that can thread their distinctive assets, their messaging through every touch point, and then be in the right place at the right time to convert the demand. So in other words, effectiveness is that marriage of strong brand building with strong commercial execution. Because when we think about the consumer, they're not experiencing marketing in silos. And neither should we as we think about how we run our brand.
I love that. I love that you're thinking about the entire journey and everything from packaging to pricing to where and how people are buying it. That's terrific. So I'm going to widen the scope just for a minute and talk about the state of the industry. So we're thinking about some big picture year over year effects that we've been seeing. So what are the big either geopolitical or macroeconomic or consumer issues that you think are going to have an impact on marketers this year?
Well, there's several that we're dealing with today for sure. One that I think cuts across so many different industries is around value-seeking behavior. We know consumers are looking for value more than ever before. A second one that's emerged certainly across my industry, across CPG, is wellness and wellness trends and how that's impacting purchase behavior. A third that's really interesting in my space in particular is social intimacy. So the way people are socializing is changing quite a bit. And the last one that's on a lot of marketers' mind is with next gen and really Gen Z and winning with that consumer base. So starting with value, I mean, we've all felt this, right? The wallet's been getting pinched the last couple of years, discretionary income drying up. And, what it means is whether it's in Bev Alc or CPG, consumers are putting a bit more thought into what's going on their shopping list. And we've, as marketers, have to be smarter about making sure we are delivering value for that consumer. And that doesn't just mean pricing when I talk about value. It really means thinking about the formats that you're offering the consumer. Are you giving them more small sizes, trial, make it easier for them to come into your brand? It also comes into our innovation strategy and thinking about the role that innovation can play to deliver value. I've seen a lot of brands do this incredibly well. We've done it in spirits. I'm seeing it in CPG, where innovation now can go beyond just innovating within your own portfolio, but innovating with partnerships and bringing other cross-category partners in to launch products with you. That can be a really effective way to deliver more value to the consumer and give your brand an edge. Second area, wellness. This is a great thing, right? That people, and this is not a new thing, that the U.S. consumer is more and more focused on finding wellness in their lives. But it does mean we have to shift the way we're doing things from a food and beverage perspective for sure. So just thinking about moderation, which is one of the key, behavioral shifts that we're experiencing, particularly in my industry, to us, the answer means a couple of things. One is we've got to have a portfolio and a drink strategy that can cater to more of that moderate behavior. So we're coming to the market with more lower ABV or lower alcohol offerings, providing inspiration for lower alcohol cocktails that consumers can indulge in. And we're also making sure that when people are making those purchases, that they're really seeing that extra value in the brand. So oftentimes people might be drinking less, but they're going to treat themselves when they have that drink, right? They're going to trade up. And so it's making sure our portfolio is ready to meet them. The last one I'll touch on is just on the next gen demographics and Gen Z, because of course this is top of mind for, I think, just about every marketer today across industries and how you connect with that audience. One of the areas that we're really focused on, and I think most marketers should be, is thinking about the demographics and the dynamics of the Gen Z audience. The truth is I guess we're about 18 months away from the majority of Gen Z being multicultural. So acknowledging that and really having an understanding of the role that multicultural marketing plays for your brands is going to be key for winning in the future and driving that growth that we all need.
Oh, those are great. Those are all such salient consumer trends that we're all watching at the moment. So what do you think if you're looking at the other side of the coin, not the consumers, but marketers, what are the industry's biggest causes for concerns moving forward next year?
One of the things that we're kind of grappling with in the industry that really isn't net new is just the ongoing expansion of the places and spaces and the ways in which we need to connect with our consumers, right? Every day there's another platform, there's another way that we need to get to the consumer, and figuring out how to, one, just understand that journey really clearly as a marketer is becoming harder and harder, and it's becoming more important in our role. And I think then the second part is, once you understand that journey, how do you keep your brand consistent across touch points and not kind of lose the plot as the consumer is going through all these different touch points, so that ultimately you can drive the most impact. So that highly fragmented landscape that seems to be getting more and more fragmented for us is definitely creating a challenge for marketers. But I also, on the flip side, creates an opportunity, because the marketers that are getting closer to that journey and are really thinking through the different touch points are the ones that are going to be set up to win.
That's great. And I know one of the ways that people are trying to figure out how to manage that new consumer journey is by tapping into AI tools. Um, do you see AI playing a greater role in the coming year for your brands?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's come into play in multiple ways for us today. Um, One is just with audience segmentation. So we have today we've got solutions that are leveraging consumer and retail data solutions for identifying and targeting those higher propensity audiences for us. So we're getting much more sophisticated, much more efficient in just breaking out those different consumer audiences and reaching them. The second is really around maximizing some of our media purchasing and the outcomes of that. specific example for us that I've seen a lot of savings and impact on has been with the bidding and optimization strategy that we're using with our agency today. So we're just getting smarter, faster, better decisions when we're going out and actually executing the media buys themselves. And the last, which I think we could all relate to, is there's an enhanced level of personalization that's been coming through much more consistently with AI being involved in marketing. And it's a great thing because it's giving us the ability to get even closer with the consumers and do that at scale. One of these, I could give you a good example of how we're doing this today. That's been pretty exciting for us. Jameson, which is our largest brand in our portfolio, has quite a bit of different partnerships across professional sports and even college sports. So we are the official whiskey of Major League Soccer. The brand also is involved with NFL teams and even some NBA and NHL teams across the country. And one of the opportunities we saw with AI and how we do things today is that it would be great if we could get way more targeted and personalized with the messages that we're reaching the fans with across the country, because we know how passionate people can be about their local team, or as they're kind of getting ready to maybe have a night out or get together with their friends to watch a game that's coming up that weekend. How great would it be if you could really hit them with a much more tailored and personalized message that ties back to their local team and their passion points. So we've been bringing AI in to help us do that at scale. And we remember, 3 or 4 years ago, even, having many of these partnerships, talking about it as more of a dream, that if we could just reach these consumers at the right moment with the right local message, how powerful that would be. And today we can do that at scale. So it's a great example of where I think AI is enhancing the impact of our brands and actually creating a stronger, much more emotional and personalized connection for the consumer that we're going after. Another one that's been kind of fun, that was a bit of an experiment for us recently, was we've brought in some Gen AI tools to in-house to basically develop some new assets around cocktails. So we weren't developing full brand campaigns, but actually just developing some new drinks and cocktail assets. So we did this at a portfolio level and developed a whole arsenal of assets that we can use, from anything from the old fashioned to the margarita, to now we're getting into different holiday drinks that we have Gen AI creating assets for us. And this is something great for us because it can enable us to kind of plug and play these assets in different situations. So, common example would be consumers are out there searching Pinterest for drink recipe ideas. We've got an arsenal of, recipes that could be plugged in easily and connect to the consumer in a much more seamless way than if we had done it kind of brand by brand in the past.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that personalization and just the content creation is great. So it sounds like you do see a lot of strengths from the AI tools you're using, but have you run into challenges with AI, and how have you dealt with those challenges?
I think the biggest challenge is just ensuring you're not completely handing over the distinctiveness of your brand over to a machine, right? To then make it feel more generic. And that's going to be one of the hardest challenges I think that we'll all face as marketers, is as we bring AI more closely integrated into how we're expressing our brands. How do we, make sure we don't lose that unique, emotional and distinct identity that separates our brands from others? So to me, that's probably the single largest risk. And, because at that point, then it becomes white noise for the consumer, and they start to feel like they're getting fed a lot of similar messages from brands, and they have a harder time picking apart what makes you special. I think the other area that's been a challenge that we've certainly responded to is just the reality of how we now need to be, you know, making sure that our brands are going to be picked up adequately in the LLMs. And that means the way we have our content out there has to be very much visible, connected into the GPT models. So that requires having, frankly, you have to have more touch points out there for GPT to go out and pick up your brand and recognize it. So whether that's, third party articles, influencers, press releases, making sure your digital shelf is clean and correct and optimized. All of those things have to be done at a higher level now if you want to win for consumers that are turning to ChatGPT or other engines to really get recommendations on drinks or recommendations on brands that they might want to explore.
So have you seen impact from AI on search trends? And it sounds like you have from that example. How are you addressing search moving forward?
So for us, it's really about acknowledging that traditional SEO is evolving as consumers are moving from the keyword-based queries to more conversational query-driven interactions. So as I kind of mentioned, these models are influencing which brands get surfaced when consumers are asking for things like recipes or recommendations. So for us, the shift is thinking well beyond the classic Google rankings and optimizing our content and our approach for AI discoverability. So that means even getting down to our CRM content for AI indexing, just having richer data out there, having more recipe content available, easily available for these models, even frequently asked questions being available. So it's just about having, again, more touch points, more of a cohesive approach to thinking about getting your brand out there with the right information so that it can be easily picked up.
So agent to agent commerce is receiving a lot of hype as a potentially seamless form of shopping in the future. So how should marketers be thinking about the agent to agent commerce? Have you been preparing for this?
We have, and this one kind of blows my mind, to be honest, to think that now we're at a world where it becomes agent to agent, right? That it's not just the shopper we had to think about. Now we have to think about the shopper's agent and what would their agent do? So that brings a whole another dynamic. And here's the thing. I mean, we know it has the potential to completely change the way people discover and purchase brands. So in my case, in my industry, instead of a person, searching and comparing brands and spending that time, reading through the information, then ultimately clicking buy, their digital assistant or agent now could just say, order a bottle of tequila for this weekend's dinner party. And then an agent ecosystem starts to go to work and handles everything behind the scenes. So that is quite different in terms of that path to purchase that we're used to. So what does it mean? For us, it means that brand preference has to be determined before the person's even shopping. So the shift is from optimizing for visibility to optimizing for availability. And that's back to some of the things I was touching on. It's really ensuring your brand's data, positioning, your values are recognized and retrievable by AI agents to gain preference. And it comes down to making the brand data machine readable. So that's clear product data. Your claims have to be out there, those product claims, awards, pricing, really feeding the machine what it's going to need to give your brand preference. And it's ultimately, if you translate your brand story into an AI friendly readout, it means that you're going to build trust with those agencies, with those agents. You'll start to have that differentiation, and that value proposition is going to come through to the agents over time.
Are you searching for pricing data that keeps your brand ahead of the curve? Acuity Pricing's competitor price tracking, promotions, and proposition tools help the UK's biggest brands act with speed, scale, and confidence, providing real-time quality data sent straight to where you need it when you need it. It's why 7 out of the UK's 10 biggest retailers and more than 60 global brands trust Acuity Pricing to get the job done. Check out acuitypricing.com to book a demo and get started.
So with all of those potential impacts for next year, how do you see your business expectations next year? Are you optimistic, pessimistic? How do you see ad investment going for next year?
For us, with all the challenges that are being faced in CPG and in the industry as a whole, and the environment we were talking about in the beginning, we still have a very positive outlook. And it's because we have brands, big, well-known established brands like Jameson, Absolut, Kahlua, and some of the ready-to-drink portfolios that are off the back of those brands that are actually doing really well in this environment. They're outperforming the competition. We're growing market share, and we're seeing, certain parts of the portfolio actually in very strong growth. So for us, despite the choppy waters that we're all facing in the market today, we've got a lot of reasons to be excited about what's happening for the future. And I think it comes back to some of the things we were talking about earlier. It's kind of preparing. We've done a lot of the work to prepare our brands for the evolving consumer, for those evolving forces, whether it's through innovation, partnerships. We've introduced different size formats. We've really um, taken some meaningful steps in our multicultural marketing over the last few years. And I really feel like it's contributed to the success of these brands. It's getting us into a position where we feel really confident about the future for our industry and the future for our brands. I mean, at the end of the day, this business that I'm part of is a business of connection and connecting people together. And we have fantastic brands that can do that. And they're showing us that even in tougher times, they're incredibly resilient.
So, Matt, one of the marketer toolkit's themes this year is a turn towards escapism and nostalgia. So, let's explore that for a bit. There's just this collective sense of societal fatigue. How do you see that impacting your category?
I love this question, Anne-Marie, because we can all use an escape, right? But seriously, I think there's societal fatigue right now. I think we've all felt it, and it's definitely being felt to a degree in a spirits category in a real way. People are feeling stretched more than ever. They're getting overwhelmed. They can be overstimulated by the amount of information they're consuming every day. And it's really putting more and more pressure on brands to deliver something that feels like that mental break. And the reality is consumers aren't just looking for products, they're looking for these moments to help them reset emotionally. And in my business, that offers a lot of opportunity, right? Because we have brands in many cases that can do that. One in particular that really stands for kind of that escape, feeling of escape, and that mental reset is Malibu. It's a brand that really thrives in these moments where people want a lighter and more carefree feeling, and it's given us a great opportunity, I think, now more than ever to stand up what makes Malibu special. And escapism really is, kind of at the core of that strategy. It's a brand that is built around transporting people to this summer mindset, regardless of the season, whether it's Tuesday afternoon in a cold January day. Malibu can kind of give people this sensory escape through its packaging, its flavor, the coconut aroma. Before you know it, you feel like you're been transported to this kind of tropical vacation. So for us, we've really leaned into those equities underneath this idea of escapism and the need for consumers to take that mental reset. So it's threaded through all of our different creative. It's threaded through our drink strategy. It's threaded through our tone of voice, and even the way we sample and the way we show up at partnerships. So that today, Malibu isn't really just about selling rum. We're kind of selling this feeling of warmth, ease, and lightheartedness. And it's been able to really fuel a lot of growth for us, particularly in our ready to drink business for Malibu that we've put more and more emphasis on in the last couple of years. And it's been a huge growth driver. So this can be a real powerful force in marketing, not just for brands like Malibu.
That's great. And another aspect of this is that nostalgia in particular has been a hot topic of conversation. Are you exploring that trend in your marketing?
We definitely are. And, one brand that's really benefited from this and has taken hold of it is Absolut. You can imagine it's uniquely positioned for nostalgia because it's a brand that every time I ask or every time I mention Absolut to someone and let them know that I work at the company that has Absolut vodka, oftentimes the consumer or person will tell me, I remember when. They'll start the sentence with, I remember when. I remember these great things about Absolut. I remember the times I've had. I remember the advertising. And that's a great thing, actually. It's a real gift for a marketer. And we leaned into that, particularly the last few years for the brand. So underneath this nostalgia trend has been a classic cocktail revival in the drinks business. So things like the espresso martini, the Cosmo came roaring back in the last couple of years. And we were one of the first brands to really jump on that trend and be there and live at the center of it alongside Kahlua. So those are areas where the brand has been able to lean into a tailwind around that nostalgia. But we also took it into our partnerships. So we've done a number of different partnerships for Absolut that kind of trigger that nostalgia need. One recently is with Paris Hilton. She's really a natural fit. She really was to us kind of the personification of the Cosmo, and has worked with us on a number of different events and activities. And I think it's triggered that nostalgia in a real positive way, expanding the brand and helping bring new consumers. And I think what's been really interesting about all this too is nostalgia is something that plays also really well for the younger audience, right? That can play really strongly for Gen Z, not just for those that actually lived through times that they're recalling, but it has an attraction and a magnetism to it that brings in the Gen Z audience. So that's been a really powerful force for us. It's something that again is a strength for Absolut. It's a brand that kind of wins on nostalgia probably better than any spirits brand out there. And we're going to continue to lean in on this because it's true to the identity of the brand, and it's really attractive for consumers, and it's working.
We've seen a lot of research this year around creative consistency and the idea that like ads don't wear out. We think we get bored of ads, but for the consumer, familiarity just keeps making the ads more potent. For something like Absolut, which had all those iconic posters that were just so prevalent to my generation anyway, I think it does make it easy to tap into that and pull on that power that those iconic ads bring the brand. So that's great. So we talked a little bit about this, but how? Let's talk a little bit more about emotion and bringing emotion back to the customer experience and how you do that both online and offline. How are you playing with emotion with your marketing?
Yeah, so we've actually been doing quite a bit more of this in the last year or two on our brands, and it's about kind of going that level deeper, right? And trying to connect our brands into something that is truly meaningful for consumers and captures their hearts. And I've got a great example of something that I'm really proud of that my team's been working on over the last few months. I'm not sure if you're a mezcal drinker, Emery, but I'm sure you've heard of mezcal if you haven't tried mezcal. It's been a very popular kind of new trend for consumers. And we have a brand called Del Maguey. And Del Maguey is actually the brand that started the mezcal category 30 years ago in the US. And it's a brand that's got these incredible roots. It's stories intertwined with the villages and families of Oaxaca. We've got a different expression or item that represents each region, and then there's a family behind each region. It's just one of the most handcrafted and artisanal spirits you're ever going to find, and every bottle really has emotion built into it. So we in this more emerging category that has certain hot spots around the country of where consumers are really into mezcal, my team and I were asking ourselves, how do we bring forth that emotion and that feeling that we all have that's so special about this brand and bring it to life for consumers, and do that through our marketing efforts. So instead of kind of simply sponsoring events or attaching Del Maguey, we started curating experiences that are fully immersive for consumers. And we began by thinking about who is kind of the ultimate consumer that we want to go after, who's that real champion that's closest, we believe, closest to a lot of the things that our brand stands for. And we ended up working with a few different emerging Latin artists in the New York area. And many of them share the same cultural heritage and creative spirit that's around Del Maguey. And we hosted these pop-up events where the artists are performing. They're transforming the spaces with the colors, the sounds, and of course the liquid of Del Maguey and the energy that comes from Oaxaca, Mexico, where Del Maguey all started. And it's just been giving us these incredible, deep emotional experiences that are creating incredible content opportunities for the brand. So we have now the consumers that are in these experiences pushing content out organically around the events. And we're capturing our own content of that music, imagery, craft, and we're then bringing that back out to a much broader audience. And I think when that when that content is hitting people today, they can tell how real and how authentic it is, that it's not just the brand sponsoring an experience and putting their name there. It's really curating this real emotional connection point with consumers. So it's something I've been super excited about because I know that it's working for us, and we're going to continue to build on it and bring it into more markets. And it gives us just phenomenal content that we can bring online, because I think one of our challenges was, how can we show up digitally in a way that is true to how authentic and artisanal this brand is, and the content that we're getting from these experiences is very much living up to that.
Yeah, that's such an advantage you have in the premium in the liquor category, right? That so often it's associated with bringing people together in those social moments. Whereas social media in particular has become more antisocial, and recent data has shown us that social media users tend to prioritize mindless scrolling over genuine connection. Is this a trend that you're worried about?
It's true. I mean, social media is encouraging a lot of that passive scrolling, and it can lead to a lot of a less of that real connection that we all desire. So instead of us, worrying about it, we're trying to see that opportunity of how we can show up differently and win in that space. And the real unlock for us, and I'm sure it's true for many others today, is finding content creators that genuinely are interested in your brand and that share a lot of the values of their brand, and that their audience is the audience that you want to reach. And then working with them, giving them some creative license to bring your brand to life in their world. So I feel like a few years ago, it used to be, find these social influencers, get them to talk about your brand. And it felt very forced. And maybe many consumers were okay with that in their social feed. And they said, okay, I saw this celebrity talking about a brand. Maybe that piqued their interest. I don't think that works very well today. So relying more on these content creators, it's like a whole new playground for us. It can be a bit risky at times, right? Because you're bringing your brand into a creative space that you don't have full control over, but it's super exciting because now my teams are spending more and more time seeking out these content creators that we think are the type of people that fit our brand, and then finding fun ways, exciting ways for them to work with us. So I'm actually excited about it because I feel it can make the, social media part of our job much more meaningful for consumers, and get them to stop and have an experience that they enjoy with our brand versus just being fed kind of brand after brand message.
Yeah, and I think that's such a smart way to think about it, that it's really thinking about your brand as how it's co-created with consumers, right? Consumers bring their own ideas about your brand. And so it's often a conversation that you need to be involved in. And those creators really help you bridge that conversation, I think. So going into next year, how are you thinking about balancing brand advertising and investment with performance?
At our company, we're not thinking of brand and performance marketing as competing priorities. They're really complementary forces. And we know that if we can integrate both together and think about that full funnel approach to marketing, ultimately it's going to drive the ROI we need. It's going to strengthen brand equity. So our strategy is aligning our brand building with our performance goals. It's combining long-term equity with short-term sales drivers. It's not picking one over the other. And of course, it's going to vary certainly by brand and by category of how we're going to go about that. But a few of the ways that we're approaching it today, one is just ensuring that we are doing full funnel targeting. And that means getting consumers the right message at the right stage across that total journey, from awareness all the way down to conversion. Another is just being flexible and consistent with our content. So that's building that brand recognition while driving action across the different channels. So thinking about, fit for platform content, staying as consistent as we can along the consumer journey, but again, showing up in those channels in a way that's gonna aid conversion in the best possible way. And another area that we've been leaning into and will continue to, when we think about balancing advertising and performance, is leveraging partnerships. So for us on the media side, that means we're doing more influencer partnerships, working with more and more influencers across our brands. to be integrated into our media plans. The other is retail media is taking on a more important role in our industry. I know it's pretty common in CPG, but in the wine and spirits industry, it's becoming more and more of an activity that we're engaging in. So working with some of our key customers from a retail media perspective to really help kind of close that loop and drive conversion at the point of purchase.
So, what types of measurement are you using to really isolate the impact of your marketing investment?
So at Pernod Ricard, we've got a holistic, sophisticated measurement approach for the investments. We run a portfolio in-house marketing mix model. We do it twice a year. It involves multiple cross-functional teams coming together, not just the brand team, but we've got our events, PR, media team, commercial representation in the room to really look at how the impact of A&P is being felt across the board. So this allows us to go pretty deep, actually. We're not just looking at paid media and how that's performing, but we're actually measuring the impact of PR, sponsorships, influencer activity. In the past couple of years, we're actually able to add in the impact of point of sale and sampling activity, which is a big investment that we make in my business when we think about our brands being visible at retail or in bars. And we bring all of those different investments in and then are able to see the ROI across the whole spectrum, which has been incredibly helpful. And it's enabled us to really drive our ROI up pretty significantly over the last few years.
And are there any measures that are the most trusted or more important in your organization, or is it the combination?
It's really a combination across the board because it's going to vary by brand, depending. We have such a wide portfolio here. So depending on the brand and the brand's objectives, it's going to vary on which items we're going to focus more on. So I'll give you an example. We have a newer brand in our portfolio called Italicus, which is a really high-end Italian liqueur. And 2/3 of the sales of that brand are done in bars in these really nice accounts across America. So how we're measuring effectiveness and where we're going to direct a lot of our spend, of course, is driven a lot by where the brand's sold and where consumers where it's showing up. Whereas opposed to a Jameson, our largest brand in our portfolio, very high awareness, is highly distributed across every channel in the off and the on premise, is one where we're really looking across the full spectrum, and the weighting is going to shift quite differently for a brand like that, of course.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. That's all we have time for. But thank you for joining us and sharing what you're working on at Pernod Ricard. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for listening.